Petroleum, a very important source of energy and economic commodity in Nigeria, has had so many problematic issues since the 1980s. There is the issue of subsidy, the issue of scarcity, the issue of sharing of revenues accruing from petroleum, the fuel subsidy issue, which in December 2011 generated social and political problems that paralyzed economic activities nationwide, the issue of probes in the downstream petroleum subsector, and recently the issue of privatization and deregulation of the Nigerian oil industry and the Petroleum Industry Act. According to the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Nigeria lost more than 115,000 barrels per day to oil theft and vandalism between January 2021 and February 2022, which amounts to $3.27 billion worth of crude oil. By implication, the country lost about 7.6% of the current 1.5 million barrels of crude produced per day on average. Therefore, if 80% of Nigeria's crude oil is stolen, as claimed by some operators, that means Nigeria produces about 300,000 barrels per day, whereas regulators put the daily output at 1.5 million. The NUPRC recently expressed worry over the crude loss figures recently being quoted in the media by some operators, given actions taken so far on the issue. The NUPRC had said it established a panel to audit the activities of operators in the upstream sector to ascertain the actual volume of oil lost to theft. The claim that the government has backed the assertion that 80% of Nigeria's oil production is lost to oil theft is false. Based on the regulator's record, only 7.6% of crude oil is lost to theft. For more on these discoveries and setting the facts straight, we're now being joined by Gbenga Komolafe, Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. Engineer Komolafe is also the younger brother of the Deputy Managing Director of this day newspaper group, Kayode Komolafe. Welcome to the program, Mr. Komolafe. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Arise. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and your team. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, too, for joining us. President Muhammadu Buhari recently gave marching orders to your agency, among others, to curtail crude oil theft and pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta. Can you brief us on how that is going? And when do you think crude oil output will increase or recover in order for Nigeria to gain from high oil prices?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abati. Let me start by saying that the order, that is the presidential, that indeed Mr. President gave a specific order that the relevant agencies of government should put an end to the menace, to the tragedy of crude oil theft in Nigeria. And let me say that that order indeed is not specific to the Commission in the sense that the Commission as a regulator does not regulate criminals, does not, the mandate of the agency does not actually extend to dealing with criminals. That is crude oil theft in the sense that we do not have the abrasive, the coercive machinery to subdue criminals. Our mandate actually covers technical and commercial regulatory function. But that is by the way. Let me start by saying that the issue of crude oil theft is Nigeria has assumed a very horrific level, very condemnable, very tragic, in the sense that Nigeria is an oil economy, and whatever affects the oil sector affects the health of the nation. To that extent, let me just refresh our memory about, that is the progression to the tragic level we are in the upstream industry at the moment. And suffice to say that the Nigeria oil and gas industry is actually facing a very challenging moment, and that is from the upstream to the downstream. The situation is really very, very challenging. It will be recalled that, up to the late 90s, before lately, the issue of crude oil theft was, basically being battled by, majorly by the NNPC alone. In those days, you experienced that, lines like System 2C, that is mainly, the product line, is, mainly, was really the subject of attack. So what I'm saying, in effect, is that at that point, it was not, it was not escalated to, crude oil pipelines. But now what we are witnessing has reached a very, 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 very alarming situation, and very horrific. Like I said, I recall recently the commission, led by myself, was on the entourage of the, that is the Minister of State for Petroleum, that is Chief Timi Silva, and the Chief of Defense Staff and the GMD himself. We were, we had a flyover over the creeks. And I want to tell Nigerians that what we saw was very, very terrible and very alarming, that one could not believe that the level of sheer act of criminality that we saw was really very terrible. It was very alarming, and of course, and I want to commend Arise. We've seen the photoshots of clips of, the visit, at least being aired by Arise, at least for Nigerians to be properly informed as to the level of, criminality and stealing going on, in the creeks. Aside the fact of this stealing is the huge environmental pollution and degradation of the environment when these criminals, finish taking the crude, they just, leave the environment heavily, degraded. And that poses a different issue that the nation will have to be dealing with. And in terms of, the figure, like was actually read out, at the moment, based on 2021 figure alone collated by the commission, the figure, is in the region of about $2.2 billion alone. Not to talk of when the figure was, the figure was collated up to the first quarter. That alone has, gone beyond $3 billion. But now the issue, equally like you put it, Dr. Abati, is the fact that, and that is of concern, is the fact that even as tragic as that is the fact that we have equally been monitoring, and the different figures equally being banded by the different operators. That itself is of huge, concern to us as a regulator. And arising from that, or flowing from that, and drawing from, the regulatory powers of the Commission under Section 7G of the Petroleum Industry Act, which vest specific powers on the agency to conduct audit and special investigation of, on the activities in the upstream sector, whether of the operators or any act of criminality. We feel that it is very critical that, different operators, whether the regulator or any of the operators at all, we should have a common figure. That is very key to the nation, because it is this figure.
That's very important.
Yes,
if I could come in here just for the sake of time and raise another major issue. Another reason for the depressed oil output is lack of investment by international oil companies, which are exiting Nigeria and turning to countries like Mozambique and Namibia in Africa, where they've made massive oil and gas discoveries and are investing billions of dollars there. What is your agency doing to reverse this trend and make the investment climate in Nigeria more attractive to the IOCs?
Yeah, thank you for that question, but if you may permit, I was just trying to make a key point that I would have loved to have a landing before coming to your question.
Do go ahead.
And that is to the fact that the essence, yes, thank you very much. The essence of the investigative audit that the Commission has ordered and embarked upon is very critical, to the Federation revenue. Because at the end of the day, the nation takes its royalty and taxes, from the net crude that the nation earns. So if we cannot establish the absolute figures of crude oil theft, forensically, then it means the nation will be shortchanged. So that is the essence of the audit that the Commission has initiated in line with its statutory and regulatory powers under Section 7G, as I've actually highlighted. Then, coming back to your question as to the fact that the operators, investors are making investment, in other climes like Angola, like you have said. Yes, the situation, again, flowing from my point of departure, that is where I started from, is the fact that it is worrisome that the Nigerian upstream environment has become very hostile, again, due to activities of these criminals and maybe issues of host community, especially the issue of crude oil theft has made the upstream sector very unattractive, to investment, at the moment, and it's an issue that seriously need to be dealt with. The investors are there. Of course, the issue of energy transition, is there, but that is not playing major impact in attractiveness of the sector to investment. So we believe, as a regulator, and of course, we really commend the effort of the federal government of Nigeria in line with the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari that the act of criminality, that is crude oil theft, should be curbed. And at the moment, the various government security agencies are doing everything possible. And the NUPRC, the Commission, under my leadership, we're cooperating with the security agencies to ensure that this act of criminality is brought, brought to the barest minimum, if not completely stopped.
All right, but you were yet to answer her question, because you wanted to finish your point of view first on that, then answer her question that she asked afterwards.
You already did.
Okay. The Petroleum Industry Act, which the government told us was an elixir to all the problems in the oil and gas sector, does not appear to be making any difference. Why is that the case?
Well, thank you very much. I don't really share that point of view that the Petroleum Industry Act is now making much impact. Of course, the act was signed into law by Mr. President last year, 2001. At the moment, the industry is in transition stage, and the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act has commenced seamlessly, I must tell you that. And in implementing the act, Mr. President set up a presidential steering committee, as a matter of fact, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum and the relevant agencies in the ministry, that is the Commission, the Mid and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, are members of this committee, along other relevant agencies of government. Like I said, the implementation has really commenced, and but you would agree with me that whenever a law is made, it's expected that there will be a regulation that will give meaning and intent, that will give meaning to the intent of the law. So at the moment, as part of the achievements, as part of activities in implementing the Petroleum Industry Act, the steering committee, the commission, and the stakeholders are working assiduously in ensuring that the regulation that will give meaning to the intent of the law are being in the process of being finalized. The regulations have been, most of the regulations have been drafted, and the stakeholders' engagement that will lead to finalization of that act have been scheduled. And in fact, as a matter of fact, in the month of April, we expect that to take place. And with that, Nigerians will begin to see improvement, speed in the implementation of the PIA. The implementation will gain fast traction. Thank you very much.
Well, but we understand that the transition arrangements for the implementation of the PIA have been bogged down mainly by bureaucracy and the overbearing attitude of the steering committee that was set up by the president to implement it. Could this be a factor that has slowed down the implementation of the act, in your view?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abati. Well, maybe that could be a conjecture, but the reality is that both the relevant agencies under the PIA are actually collaborating effectively with the Presidential Steering Committee on the implementation of the Industry Act. There's synergy. I can actually confirm that, and the committee is an expert committee under the effective leadership and direction of the Honorable Minister of State. So, and there has been effective collaboration in ensuring that the intent and the express letters of the PIA are implemented in a manner that the nation would derive optimum value from its hydrocarbon resources.
Right, back to the IOCs. The ExxonMobil asset sale is supposed to get regulatory approval before it's consummated. Could you brief us on that? And is NNPC going ahead to exercise its preemptive rights to acquire those assets as provided in the Joint Operating Agreement?
Yeah, thank you. In respect of, with respect to the issue of assignment or transfer of the participating interest of ExxonMobil relating to the JOB, that is Joint Operating Agreement between the ExxonMobil and the NNPC. Yeah, well, I can say that, well, as a regulator, we've monitored the position very closely. And of course, we have our role to play in the assignment, as a regulator. But at the moment, what has happened is that the ExxonMobil has actually expressed, the position to, that has put on the table a corporate share, that is a corporate sale, corporate sale arrangement where the shareholders of ExxonMobil intends, has expressed intention to sell their share to Seplat. And Seplat, intends to acquire the share of ExxonMobil through its offshore arm. And in the same manner, the NNPC has equally expressed its intention to exercise its preemptive right under the JOA, under Section 19 of the JOA. And in that respect, the Commission is expected to actually give a position, and But as a regulatory body, I want to say that, well, it is not for us to actually give this position, on the media. For instance, no judge comes to the media to, give his judgment. So, but I want to assure Nigerians that as a regulator, very committed regulator, who will be advising government on, on our position in a very professional manner that will be anchored in a very profound legal, reasoning in a way that will guide, the government adequately, on the issue, that is given the fact that both parties are maintaining, contentious position. So it is the job of the regulator to actually advise government appropriately. And I want to say this, we have done, and we believe that that will, rest the case. Thank you.
Could you also update us on the revocation of, some OML, licenses, previously that of Adax Petroleum, which we understand that the NNPC signed, and a product sharing contract with a little-known local oil firm, AAR Investments, to produce those assets. What is happening as regards this revocation?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I think you are referring to the specific case of Adax, that is Adax Petroleum. Well, as a regulator, I think what had happened was that the award was made to the co-awardees in the case of Adax, and the regulator realized that the awardees, could not meet the term of the award. And in that respect, it behoves the regulator to actually invoke, that is the relevant terms of the award. But by the way, the issue at the moment is in the court, and I would not want to elaborate further on that in a manner that we don't engage in sub judice. So, but we believe that by the time the case is decided by the court, then the issue will be well rested. But the regulator, has done what it actually needs to do in this respect. Thank you.
Well, we gather, though, that China's state-owned Sinopec Group, which owns Adax, did not take the revocation well. And this has threatened the funding of several projects in the country, including the railways, the Mambila Hydro Dam project, and even the Ajaokuta Kaduna Kano gas pipeline project by the Chinese government. I hope you are not going to say that this is also conjectural.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah. Well, like I said, the job of a fair, and a transparent regulator is to act within, terms, of every award, to actually, act within, the terms. That is what makes a regulator very effective. So as a regulator, at least under my watch, what we try to do is to ensure that we live within terms of every award, and every award is guided by the provisions of the law. We do not act in an emotional manner, and but like I've said, whatever decision was taken purely in line with the terms of the award. Well, there could be definitely, could be reactions to that, but we believe such responses or reactions, could be managed. And again, like I said, the issue is at the moment is a matter of, to amount to sub judice, since the matter is already before the court of competent jurisdiction. But as a regulator, we are watching very closely on the matter. Thank you.
What is the situation with the marginal field bid rounds that started in 2020? Has your agency been able to resolve the issues that have been raised by the motley crew of investors that were clumsily cobbled together by the defunct Department of Petroleum Resources? And how many of them have been able to pay their signature bonuses? Will those that have failed to meet the payment deadline lose their oil blocks?
Yeah. Thank you. As regards the issue of the 2020 Marginal Feed Award, I want to say that it was an inherited situation when we assumed office. And let me say quickly that when we assumed office, like I said, that it was a situation we inherited. We look at it that is a very, very critical issue. Critical in the sense that one of our cardinal objectives is to ensure that we increase the national oil production. And of course, that we realize that the marginal feed could actually help in enhancing that. And for that reason, we took the issue, frontally. It was really very, let me say, it has really been very, very challenging to handle the issue in the sense that the model used, in the award, that is dispensation, really, pose serious challenges to, bringing the matter to an end quickly. But I want to assure Nigerians and indeed the awardees that we have been able to, as I speak, try to bring the issue to a manageable, that is close. We have been able to devise a strategy for bringing the issue, that is the issue, the challenges to a close. At the moment, we've had over 80% compliance in terms of payment. In fact, one of the challenges we've had is that even in forming the SPV for the awardees that have made payment, they were still having challenges working together, again, because of the nature of the model used. But by and large, I want to say that as a commission, we learned from this experience and want to assure Nigerians that the next marginal bid, will definitely not be bogged down by the kind of challenges we experienced in the course of managing, the fallout of the 2020 marginal feed. And before the first half of the year, we want to see a situation where, some of the awardees will be proceeding to, feed development plan. And at the moment, again, we've recorded, more than at least close to 90% of the co-awardees forming SPV. And at that stage, it's a very comfortable stage that the commission, could go ahead to issue the petroleum prospecting license. That is PPL, expected under, that is Section 94(2) of the Petroleum Industry Act, which should be the next stage. So I just want to say that we are more comfortable at the stage we are than where we inherited the situation. And just to tell the co-awardees to be less apprehensive about the issue, as given that as a responsible regulator, we are very much concerned, especially that the level of investment, the co-awardees have made is really very, very huge. And we are very conscious of that, especially the cost of capital, the cost of borrowing. Since it's all investment and not charity, we know that it has it could have very, very negative impact, even for the financial institutions. So we have been able to face the issue. As a matter of fact, that has been one of the most challenging situations we inherited on assumption of office, and we have dealt with it seriously. Thank you very much.
Right. The Russia-Ukraine conflict presents a very big opportunity for Nigeria to harness massive gas resource and develop gas infrastructure, that will provide LNG to Western Europe, because they want gas now to wean themselves off from this dependence on Russia. What's your agency doing in this respect? And also, when the story just broke this morning about what is happening in Algeria and Italy, in fact, Mario Draghi traveling all the way to Algeria to deepen gas production, doubling gas, production and sending out to Italy and the likes. And we're seeing some other African countries today, but we're wondering what is happening with Nigeria as regards this. Since we say it's a gas country, not even a crude oil country, we've got a lot of gas. Why have we not been able to harness all of this?
Well, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, honestly, Nigeria is indeed more of a gas nation than even a crude nation. Where nation is, blessed with a huge gas resources. As to whether Nigeria okay, of course, let me say that the situation in Ukraine has actually presented a huge opportunity for Nigeria to, that is occupy the space, the market space in terms of gas supply. And I believe that, that is possible. And as a regulator, we are doing everything possible, to ensure that Nigeria is able to actually, fulfill that obligation. We are reviewing all the field development plans by operators at the moment, to actually ensure that more gas is produced and pushed to the field. You recall, there's a local investor that is UTM Offshore. Is in the process of completing the project. The commission is collaborating. With the encouraging the operator. Let me put it, the investor, to actually get that project completed in collaboration with the NNPC. That project has the capacity to put in the market more than 2.2 million tons of gas per annum. And again, the LNG equally has a capacity operating at full capacity to equally be able to push more gas into the market. So, and in the long term, by the time the Train 7 is equally completed, we believe that Nigeria will be in much more better capacity, to fill the market gap, at least optimize its gas supply to the market. Thank you.
Well, the Petroleum Industry Act has a provision for the establishment of what is called an abandonment fund, which is meant to be funded by all companies for the purpose of decommissioning aging oil and gas assets, and also the restoration of the environment. Has your agency started to enforce this aspect of the PIA?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abati. Yeah, indeed, the PIA, that is the Petroleum Industry Act, under Section 232 and 233, has a copious, robust provision for implementation of decommissioning and abandonment. As a regulator, we have started putting structures in place to ensure smooth implementation of this provision of the law. Like I said, the regulation, that will drive that, the stakeholders consultation in that respect will take place in the month of, this month of April. So the regulation that will guide that is among the regulations that have been drafted in collaboration with the Petroleum, that is a Presidential Steering Committee. So by the time that finishes, then the effective implementation of that provisions of the law will take effect. The provision in the law, that is the decommissioning and abandonment is really a very critical provision to safeguard the environment. So as a regulator, we are really very committed to effective implementation of that.
Right, you've been in office for barely 6 months. What would you say have been your biggest challenges?
Yeah, thank you. The job of a regulator is really a very, very challenging job. It's not really, it's a very, very challenging job. And given my background and experience, I was really prepared, for the job. And I've taken the challenges with all, with all excitement. It's not an easy job. And in any case, like I said, one of the most challenging moments, or issues, for me was in finalizing the 2020 marginal feed round, I must say. Given, the issues I've already highlighted surrounding the, that is the award of the 2020 marginal feed. And equally, another challenge that one has really been facing, like I said, is getting the investors to, to come in the midst. That is getting investors to come in the midst of the hostile environment presented by the crude oil theft, apart from the issue of energy transition. So we are a regulator at a very challenging moment, but by and large, we promise the nation that we will not give up on the challenges. We'll continue to push and try our best, at least to justify the confidence reposed in us by Mr. President and the nation. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I'd say a very big thank you to you. I wish you a lot of luck in your work and as regards, shaping the oil and gas sector in this country. Thank you so much for your time.